Hey guys, welcome back to the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. I'm your host for today's episode, Jay Kramers, here with Justin Strange and Zack Riggs. Say hi, guys.
What
How's
up?
it going?
That was probably super loud.
Jake's drinking.
Oh, was he?
We had to drink in this. I'm sorry.
Jake was taking a swig. He can't hang out with us without drinking.
I wasn't prepared for you guys to be so quick.
The listeners are probably wondering what just happened there.
You said say hey, and that's what we did.
I thought you guys were going to pontificate a little bit.
Nah, you
Golly,
said hey.
okay.
You're the host, man. We just listen to you.
Okay, fine. All right. So today I was thinking we could talk about directors and their styles. We all have our own favorite directors. We all have our styles.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I just want to know, like, what kind of styles of film, and by style, I mean kind of the art direction. Pulp fiction, like pulpy fiction, horror, symmetrical, long shots, quick cuts. What are some of the techniques that your favorite director uses in his films? And
Her films.
Or her films, absolutely.
Come on, Jake.
I apologize. In
2022.
their films, directors,
Nice.
their films.
I could start it off briefly.
Why?
Go, please.
You like it?
Please, Zach.
So I've only seen the movie once, surprisingly. Back in 2015, The Revenant came out, an epic
movie.
Of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And
think
Alejandro
that's-
Gonzalez Iñárritu is the director. I enjoyed the first opening sequence. It was essentially these settlers of some sort were ambushed all of a sudden by natives. And first indication of that is an arrow going through the head of one of these people. I think he's like near a tree or something, just relaxing. And then it proceeds into this wonderful action sequence, but done in a methodical way, and it's shot in one take. Well, it's trying to come across as such.
Love that.
And I think it doesn't it result in Leonardo DiCaprio's character falling off the cliff.
I think
That's kind of where the movie starts.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I saw that movie in theaters. That's the only time I saw it. The only thing I really remember, I do remember thinking this is probably some of the best acting that's ever come out of Leonardo DiCaprio. Don't get me wrong, he's a wonderful actor, but I really enjoyed him in this movie. And then the
not
bear,
just verbally.
the bear scene was wonderful. I thought the bear scene was great. Yeah,
It was a guy in a suit, and he had to somehow pretend that he was wrestling with a big bear.
yeah.
A lot of grunting in that movie, but it just cinematically, the long take in the beginning, one shot take, and the use of natural light. I believe I was reading that the director decided to use a lot of natural light, so there wasn't any added, I guess, artificial light or whatever the technical term.
Totally down
was.
for some natural light. Totally down.
So it was awesome. It was hard to see scenes, especially the nighttime scenes. It's hard to make out what was going on, but I just enjoyed that. It was one of the first movies I'd seen that utilized not just the one take illusion, but also natural light. Bird Brand also kind of was appealing as well.
I was going to talk about that movie.
I guess it's a good segue, unless you wanted to add anything more to Revenant.
Well, I like I said, I only saw The Revenant once, but I do remember thinking that it was a beautiful movie, beautifully acted. That's a great movie. And I think this is the first movie he won an Oscar, right?
It was.
Yeah, that's the first time he ever won an Oscar.
He finally got what he
won an
deserved.
Oscar, yeah.
Then again, awards don't mean everything, that's for sure.
Quick side note, Leonardo DiCaprio, the first time I saw him, you know what I saw him on?
Titanic. What?
I don't know. I'm going to guess the Basketball Diaries.
No, he was in a little show called Growing Pains.
TV show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Kirk Cameron and Alan Thicke. And he played this like, if I remember correctly, he was like a boy kind of without a family. So the Seavers not necessarily officially adopted him, but, adopted him. And so he was in that show. I also remember he was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, if you ever saw that movie. I think that's the first time I saw him. And then I saw him again on Growing Pains. So yeah, I really enjoy Leonardo DiCaprio. So yeah, I wasn't going to talk about this director, but it's the same director, right? With Birdman as Revenant.
Alejandro.
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, he.
I guess that's why I like both movies.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've ever seen Birdman with Michael Keaton, but man, that movie is. I really wanted to show it in class, but it's rated R.
Yeah.
It's high. Yeah, it's rated R, and I even I didn't want to show it in class. I wanted to show a clip because we were talking about long takes. I remember we were going to be talking about long takes, and that first thing I thought of was Birdman. But in that one long take, in the first like 3 seconds, it was like 4 or 5 cuss words. It was the.
And you weren't even one where he's nude.
Yeah, well, it was the one where I think it was Edward Norton and Michael Keaton on stage together, and they were talking to each other, and it was just cussing. So, but Birdman, if you haven't seen Birdman with Michael Keaton, man, and Emma Stone, I forgot she was in this movie.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And Zach Galifianakis, he actually does a great job in that movie. You know, he's known for his comedy, but man, he's not bad. So that isn't the movie I wanted to talk about, but I don't know if you guys know this. I'm sure I've told you. But my favorite director and his directing style is, and I hate to say it because I'm like, it's kind of like, yeah,
I'm waiting for it.
It's kind of like, you go to film school and this is the director you're supposed to like because you're in film school. And let me tell you, let me shut it. let me tell you something about film school students.
So much preamble.
Yeah, I know. Let me tell me something quickly about film school students. Is they're all stuck up. And they're all stuck up and they think they're holier than thou for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. And they think they can't watch action movies like Transformers and stuff. But I do. Weird. Yeah. And the only directors they're supposed to watch are like these auteurs, which isn't a bad thing. But I do really enjoy Wes Anderson. And Jake, you helped me on my short film. And you know that Wes Anderson really inspired me, at least with some shots. Like
there were definitely some, I wouldn't necessarily call them like not even like, they're definitely inspired, like paying homage to him.
Yeah. So I like a lot of wide shots. Like I would have shot that whole movie at 14 millimeter lens.
Yeah, I remember us talking and you're like, man, can we use the 24 for this? Can we use the 24 for this? And I was like, listen, I mean, we could, but I really don't think we should.
Whenever I showed it to my teachers, because they have to view it, and they were like, well, this is what you should do. Like that, it's the one scene where they're standing in front of the house. And since I wrote that movie, that's the shot I had in mind. I was like, I don't want anything else. I don't want any cutaways. I want them to be there with a wide shot. And they didn't care for that. But I was like, no, I'm keeping this. I will defend it to the death if I have to. So yeah. And then not only that, but so we shot in this motel room, Zach, and it was orange.
I saw.
Yeah. So the movie, of course, whenever it was done, it was orange. And so I had to, and I really liked it. So I tinted a lot of the other scenes. Yeah, I did too. We didn't really use that much light in it, right? We just basically used the light that was in the motel room. We used a little bit, but not very much.
We pretty much just popped 2 LEDs on and bounced it off the roof.
I mean, seriously, that's really all we did. We had plenty of light because not only were the lights on, but the whole room was freaking orange, So it's like
pretty natural.
Yeah. And so to match that, I had to tint the rest of it a little bit of a yellowish orange, which is fine because that's kind of what vibe I was going for. Because Wes Anderson's real symmetrical. So you're standing in one of those third positions. Like you're either in the center, you're in the left or the right. You're not ever. It's always very most of the time on what do they call them on the tripod? But there's another term for it. What is the other term for a tripod? Sticks. Thank you. Yes, sticks. It's almost always on sticks. There's some like zooms and pans, but that's what I like about him. Everything's very symmetrical. It's like it's kind of like what we're doing now with this Zoom stuff. It's if I were to take like 3 of his shots and stack them on top of each other, they'd be super symmetrical. So
for our audience who don't have,
Wes Anderson, he does some interesting things too. Like have you guys seen French Dispatch?
No, I've seen clips though.
Well, there's a scene in there where one of the main characters who's in prison, it shows him as a child, and instead of like cutting to him as an adult, the adult version of this person just walks in, this child gets up and walks away, and he just sits down. Like, to me, that's interesting, because it's like I don't know how to explain it, but it's a very different approach to showing, a flashback as opposed to showing a flashback. We just see the younger version get up and walk away, and that's the only time we see him in the whole movie. Is the younger version is that interaction with him and his older self. They just get up and sit down. And so
the thing with Taika Waititi, not Taika Waititi, that's my director. The thing with Wes Anderson is Wes Anderson, I think, plays very much into the fact that he knows we're watching a film. Like, I don't want to say it's self-indulgent, but he makes it very clear that like he's not interested in creating an immersive experience. When you watch his films, you're watching films. They're almost like moving art pieces as opposed to something that draws you in and you forget you're watching a film. It's like you're very aware you're watching like an art piece and he is the creator. And this is his canvas. And it's very
Jake, I would agree with that. Like it's like watching a book,
Yeah.
Because almost always there's a narrator that narrates everything that's going on. And then just his style. There's not really any, I mean, there are some movies with shaky cam, but not very much. It's all mostly done on a tripod. And if there is any movement, it's a pan or it's a tilt or it's a zoom.
Yeah, it's almost like a pop-up book come to life.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a good way of putting it. Or a comic book, maybe. Yeah. But pop-up book,
not even so much a comic book.
I was gonna say a pop-up book.
It's like a pop-up book.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, and then my second favorite, real quick, is Kevin Smith. He's my second favorite director, which I don't know if you guys. He did Clerks. And I guess it's not so much his like he is a pretty good director. He's a way better writer, but yeah, he's known more for his directing. So I would say Kevin Smith is the second favorite. Probably my favorite movie from him is, I don't know if you guys have seen Dogma, but if you have, then you should watch it too. It's very, very clever.
I haven't seen Dogma, but I did see the news report where he joined in with the protesters against his own movie.
Yeah. Because
he interviewed with the local news station.
It's basically taking all Christianity and just saying, "Hey, F you." And so there were a lot of protests on that, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and not just that, but there's also another movie he does. It's called Tusk. I don't know if you guys have heard or seen of that, but it's got Justin Long, and essentially he becomes a walrus.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, Jake, let's hear it, Ben.
Well, I think as I inadvertently previewed beforehand, my favorite director is probably Taika Waititi. Actually, I have a couple favorites. Alex Garland is really good, but Taika Waititi, I think, has the most distinct style, like identifiable style of the directors I like. And it's just like, it's not so much a film style as so much as in like his artistic take on things, as it is like the feeling that he promotes when you like watch his films. They're very punchy, very funny, like very almost innocent. Like he has like innocent characters and deals with like awkward situations. And he's like very almost character driven, and like characters move the story along and like you're experiencing it from their often very unique point of view. Like What We Do in the Shadows is a great film.
Yeah,
which,
the TV show is a lot better.
But the TV show is great too.
I did watch the film and I thought it was funny, but I really enjoyed the TV show a lot more. Just because the characters.
But I the reason they didn't make a sequel and they made a TV show instead is Taika didn't want to shave. He hates shaving.
Oh, because he had to shave for the movie.
And he had to shave for his part.
But he didn't even, he's not. Oh, if they made a sequel to the.
If they made a sequel. But he's got some really good movies. What We Do in the Shadows, Jojo Rabbit. He did Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Of MCU stardom. Hunt for the Wilder People is a great film that he's done. He's just very, I don't know how to describe it. He's great timing and a sense of humor. And he also is very good at seeing life from unique perspectives. Like, who makes a movie about a kid's perspective of Nazi Germany?
Yeah.
With Hitler.
Man, Jojo Rabbit was such a good movie. Have you seen that, Zack?
No, but
you should watch it.
Funny for sure.
It's very funny, but it's also just a good movie.
Full of I would say a lot of his movies
rich,
is rich, full of heart.
Yeah,
very like passionate. Like the people that they portray, I feel like are very like passionate, genuine. There's a genuineness.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even like
characters.
In Jojo Rabbit with Scarlett Johansson, I thought she did a great job in that movie. You know, with the accent and everything, and she just like the dialogue seems very genuine. Like I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. That movie was awesome. And I even showed it to my friends and they really enjoyed it. And I think it's rated PG-13, so I could technically
show it to
my class.
Yeah, you can show it to your students.
I might, maybe next year. Right now they're watching, and I'll talk about this in a minute when you all are done, about another director I actually really like. Go ahead. If you're still talking, Jake.
Oh, I was going to say, so he's just a character I really enjoy. And I would say his style is like genuine, just like a genuineness and a genuine like love of the characters in the film
I think
for whatever they're experiencing. I feel like each one of them have a passion.
Yeah, and I think with him, and it's kind of the same as I feel with Kevin Smith. Like they're both known more, I think, for their directing, but I think they're both better writers than they are directors. Kevin Smith, he's just like his dialogue, his conversations that he writes are awesome. Like I love just listening to the dialogue and the conversations that go on in his movies. With what's his face, Waititi, it's just the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole story is even with What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, which he's only in maybe a couple times. It's just funny. Like every episode is like really funny, and
Mm-hmm.
like he creates great characters and stuff. He's just, to me, just a great storyteller in general. So right now my students, they're finishing up a little movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it, called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have y'all seen that movie?
Oh, I love
Several years ago,
Secret
yeah.
Life of Walter Mitty.
And Ben Stiller directs that. And I think, I don't know how many movies Ben Stiller has actually
That movie
directed.
is slept on.
Yeah, I think it's very underrated.
And the
because-
music, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. The
It's okay.
music
No, keep
is
going.
like, oh,
It's pretty perfect, the movie. I wouldn't say it's the best movie ever made, but man, it's pretty up there, because I was watching it here because I always try to view my movies before I show them, even if I've seen them before. So I try to view them if they're new. On my TV, like Wes Anderson, he's got this very specific color palette with most of his movies, and it's usually, fall colors. So orange, brown, yellow. Like if you think like The Fantastic Mr. Fox or Moonrise Kingdom, a lot of his movies, or even like, not The World of Tenenbaums, Grand Budapest Hotel. It's like pinks and yellows and stuff. So he always has like these colors, like he's good with colors. But with Ben Stiller, like he didn't do anything special, except for he made his colors a lot more vivid and a little bit brighter. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think it made the movie a lot more beautiful, because it's not just the people we're seeing in that movie, it's the landscape. So, they go to Greenland, and then he goes to Iceland, and then he goes to Afghanistan. And it's not just like, to me, it's not just land. It's like a whole, like, I've never been to any of those places. So to me, it was just to experience them in that way through that movie, to me was kind of special, because it was like a whole new world almost.
And I think it's been a long time since I've seen it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but
I will.
I think the color grade actually gets more like saturated and like punchy as the film goes, because he starts, as he's like kind of dejected and down, and then he's like discovering life. And if I remember correctly, which I could totally be wrong, if I am, forgive me, Ben Stiller.
Because he's totally listening.
I actually think, yeah, he's totally listening to this. But I actually think it gets like more punchy, more saturated as he like goes and becomes more involved,
more adventurous,
and as his aspect and as his view on life changes.
I would agree with that. I don't really know if I've noticed it, but it's very possible, because one thing about screenwriting is, with the exposition, is you show their mundane, boring to them life. So if you remember where Walter Mitty works, he works at Life magazine, which to me sounds awesome, but to him it's normal because it's 16 years. He's been at that place for 16 years. And so it's very possible that the color palette had changed, or not the palette, but the color saturation, like you said, and the vividness changed as he, started exploring these other places, because he just was like a boring kind of
office worker.
He essentially
he worked down in he worked in the film room, right?
Well, what he would do was take photo negatives and turn them into pictures, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is cool to me. Like, that sounds really fun to me, but for him, it was kind of boring. So, and he hadn't really been anywhere, because he's really been trying to support his family since his dad died and stuff like that. So I'll have to give the movie another watch and see if I see that, Jake, so I can see if I agree with you on that. It's like, to me, it just seemed like all the colors were kind of not really saturated, but just like bright and vivid and alive. So
absolutely. The music on that movie is great. If you haven't listened to it,
man,
go get up on YouTube, get on Spotify, just open the soundtrack.
You could probably.
Was it symphonic or?
No,
so good.
Not
I
really.
Don't remember.
all it was mainly like indie music. So you got like of Monsters and Men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just look up The Secret Life of Walter Mitty soundtrack. I bet you'll find it either on YouTube or Spotify and listen to it. Because it was perfectly timed. The music was like one of the big songs was Major Tom, which I can't sing it on here, but it's like the ground control to Major Tom, and it like played at the perfect moment. And so he was real good about like knowing what songs to put in what places. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about directors, which we are, Ben Stiller is one to kind of look at. And like I said, I don't know what else he's directed. I think he directed Tropic Thunder, didn't he? You guys remember?
What?
I'm not sure about that.
Did he? I don't know if he directed.
I know he was definitely in it.
I'm almost
though.
positive he directed Tropic Thunder. I'm about to look it up.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I bet I'll beat you.
Find the answer first.
Ben Stiller. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was to say
I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, and that movie was hilarious. I don't know if you helped write it.
I don't feel like it can be made today, even though it wasn't really that long ago. But still, I think a lot has changed. I want to get your thoughts on the color palette of Justice League, the original Snyder version, and then the Whedonized version. It was firstly, remember the massive red tint that was in the theatrical release, and then they got rid of most of the red tint and kind of opted in for more of a blue in the
that was almost
the Snyder cut.
To watch.
Which one?
I couldn't see what was going on in the Whedon's.
Yeah, the Whedon cut.
All the redness. I don't mean unwatchable, like, oh, it's terrible and awful. I mean, like, it was literally difficult for me to focus on what my eyes were seeing.
It also made it more apparent that it was like a fake. I mean, I know a lot of it was green screen anyway, but I just thought that added to the fakeness to it. But then again, I also gave a nice comic booky feel, if you could put it that way. Something about the choice of the red tint. But I don't know what the decision making was in using that red tint. I'm not entirely sure. Like they show the destruction.
I don't know. I think, if I had to guess, it was probably just to show like the danger that, that was building, that like, oh, if they lose, the whole world's going to be this red hellscape.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Like, red equals bad. Ooh, I feel like it was kind of a cheat, but that's what happens when, you kind of go through production hell and you switch directors and writers and all that sort of stuff, which, by the way, we should talk about movies that do that. Let's jot that down.
Good. I'm doing it right now. Sorry, I had to step away for just a second. We're talking about the Joss Whedon versus Snyder Justice.
Yes, the color palette, the styles. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I thought. Go ahead, Zack.
Well, I was going to say one of the biggest differences, I don't even talk about the color palette, but just aesthetically, one of the big differences between Whedon and Snyder is, styly.
Styly. That's a new one.
So we're all educated.
All the wrinkles in my brain.
Okay, is what?
Aesthetically is Snyder's, I'm not going to say obsession, his love for slow-mo.
Yeah,
like
I got a little.
The Snyder cut was 3 times as long than Whedon's.
Yeah,
and the majority of that was because it was slow-mo. If it wasn't in slow-mo, and I'm not knocking the slow-mo, like it was very nice. It's very well put together. Don't rate us bad on Google. If he didn't use all that slow-mo, I don't know if it would be that much longer. Like it would probably be like half an hour longer, maybe.
Slow-mo doesn't take that long. I mean, I don't know how much slow-mo he
has he has a gratuitous love for slow-mo. He had an entire scene where Flash runs through hot dogs.
Oh yeah.
Tell me that scene was needed.
But he's the Flash. I just attribute it to he is the
Flash, but do we have to that was like 10 minutes of him running through hot dogs to save a girl that I don't think even pops up the rest of the film. It's just like this random girl. He sees her, has a crush on her. Oh no, hot dog truck, save her from the glizzies.
I think it was just to show off his abilities.
Yeah, probably. Because that was like at the beginning of the movie, I'm pretty sure.
So all that is to say is Snyder has a definite love of strong color palettes, like dark, almost monolithic color palettes, where it's like majority one color and then a secondary color to break up the monotony, and slow-mo.
And you could tell that Snyder had a more menacing vision of what Steppenwolf looked like, but they really changed his design. And for the Snyder Cut,
I
it was a
liked
lot
his
better.
design a lot better.
It was like he was more intimidating to me.
I mean, the movie in general, I thought
less jokes.
We were talking about. I was talking about it with my students, and one of my students said that he couldn't sit through. He's like, I still haven't finished it, and I'm like, man, I watched it in one night, in one sitting. Like, I thought it was awesome. I mean, I really enjoyed the Snyder cut of the Justice. I mean, I enjoyed Whedon's version, not as much, not nearly as much, because, at the time, Whedon's version was all we had. Well, half Whedon's version was all we had, and so he kind of took it and ran with it. And the red tint I thought was kind of weird. And then the whole playfulness with the Flash and that Russian family, where he's like, bye, and then runs off.
Didn't they get rid of that in the Snyder cut?
Yeah,
right?
they did. Yeah, it wasn't in there.
Yep.
It wasn't in there. I mean, yeah, I thought I did think the Snyder Cut was way better. I'm not gonna lie. And then of course at the end with Jared Leto's Joker, I was like, thank God. Like I thought he did. I mean, I know we're not talking about Jokers right now, but Jared Leto could only work with what he had with Suicide Squad, and his Joker wasn't necessary. I mean, it wasn't the best. It was probably the lowest on the very bottom rung of the ladder of Jokers. But
I don't think that's necessarily his fault, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like he did the best with what he could, and
I mean, he was a method actor. He like put rats at his co-stars' doors or something. He was he was invested. But
that's
how many scenes they cut out of it.
Heath Ledger was invested too.
Release the Ayer cut. People are saying that's never going to happen.
No, that's never going to happen. I think you know what? That's a whole other conversation I was about to start. I'm just not going to even start. I enjoyed, and like I said, especially at the end when we got to see Jared Leto's Joker given something that he can work with. Like I did not enjoy his Joker with the Suicide Squad, but it was definitely at the bottom of the pack, and he's still technically, I guess, at the bottom of the pack, but it's not as bad.
Yeah. So Zack Snyder, he has a very particular style. Like I was going back to talk about his love of the color grade. He's very, very strong color grades. Think about Man of Steel, 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch.
I forgot he did 300. He did Sucker Punch?
He did Sucker Punch. All these films have like a very gritty, dark, punchy color where it's like almost black and white with the highlights and the shadows being tinted and colored as opposed to having the natural colors in there. Yeah. I will say, what is it? Army of the Dead was a
little bit brighter than it
seemed. That was a step away from his usual style. That was very colorful. Yeah. And bright.
Maybe he did that on purpose, just because of the location and I mean, I'm sure he did it on purpose, but I guess we can speculate as to why, because of, Vegas, which I know we're not talking about this, but I thought that was a good place to move away from like the bigger cities that always have zombies in it or some sort of attack, like New York or California. It's always those kind of bigger cities. And they're like, no, we're going to do it in Vegas.
I liked Army
Canada.
Well, I'm not going to say I really liked Army of the Dead was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
But I really wanted to see a movie about the beginning of it. Like that, that like montage where all the zombies are starting to rampage and you have like the girls and the suits and the, zombie tigers attacking people. Like I want to see that movie. I want to see the beginning of the zombie apocalypse in Las Vegas.
That'd be cool because it seems like anytime we're treated to a zombie movie, it's after the zombies have already,
I want a movie. Over. I want a movie at the start of the zombie apocalypse.
With even like The Walking Dead, like we saw it before everything, and then Rick Grimes goes into a coma, and we're there after the fact. Fear
the Walking Dead briefly explored the fall of humanity, but they even rushed through that. Yeah. I think I want a series where it just goes into the days before the virus, and then the gradual fall of humanity, and then end the series once I guess the zombies are basically dominant, and end it there. And then companies will be like, oh, we need to make a spin-off for every possible storyline, which you see how The Walking Dead's working out.
Yeah.
with that.
Well, I stopped watching The Walking Dead after the middle of season 8. I'm not gonna say why because it might spoil it, but
The Walking Dead for me is just the dialogue. Like every bit of dialogue, it comes across as some like message. I don't know. It just like feels too
we're The Walking Dead.
soap operatic dialogue. It's not natural. It doesn't come across as natural. At least that's just from what I've seen.
Well,
I wish
go ahead.
World War Z.
World
I
War
wish World
Z.
War Z should have done justice to the book. Like,
Did you read the book?
oh, I love the book. Yeah,
Read it?
it's great. It's
I saw
completely different from the film. The only thing that the film shares with the book is the name.
Oh, well,
Literally,
nice.
that's it.
Do the zombies run that fast in the book?
No, not at all. The zombies in the book are literally the stock,
Mhm.
Dawn of the Dead, dumb, stupid, shambling zombies. And the whole book is set, something we're a book podcast, is set after the war's already won. And it's this researcher going back and he's talking to survivors and creating like a record of the war, almost like a document, like doing a documentary on like the Dust Bowl. You know, I've seen like the Dust Bowl documentaries with all these old people. Like, oh yeah, we had to put our plates upside down. It was like that, and it's all these short stories of people who survived the zombie apocalypse, and it goes very much into like the politics of it, how the world fell when they should have been easily handled, the problems with like the different countries, political stances and why they weren't able to beat them. And
I think that's what I would like to see.
Politics.
And there are people who were like it, like almost like the coronavirus. There are people who are saying like, oh, we don't need to be scared of them. There are people going out and like trying to tame them, people protesting for them. Like it's a very interesting, slow, like vignettes of this war. It has nothing to do with the film at all.
Yeah, I don't remember the movie being that deep at all.
No,
it felt just like a blockbuster CGI fest.
Such a disappointment. And if I have one goal in life, it's to make an accurate adaptation of that book. It's so good. It's one of my favorites.
World War Z felt like a Disney ride or something. Like it felt like and not an intimidating one either. Like Space Mountain's on the level of like exciting but serious.
Yeah, I watched that movie in theaters and I don't really remember much about it. That's how unremarkable.
I have the book. I know it's massive. I haven't read it though.
It's really good. If you get the chance.
One movie I would like to talk about, if that's okay with you guys. Did you have something to say, Zach?
Yeah, but you could go ahead.
Okay, quickly. I'll go quickly. It won't take very long. But before I decided to show The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, I was going to show a little movie called All the President's Men from 1976.
Oh, yes.
Have you guys seen it?
Big fan. I have Blu-ray and DVD, and I've read the book.
So I was watching it, and I noticed the director, Alan Pakula. I don't know him. I assume he's an older director. He directed this in 1976. He did a lot of like interesting things with that movie. So mainly the color, not the color, the lighting in that movie. Do you remember, Zach? Have you seen that movie several times?
Yeah, but I don't think the lighting ever stuck out to me. I mean, maybe it was nothing special. I mean, maybe wasn't lots of shadows.
Yeah, it's lots of shadows.
Yeah,
lots of darkness. So like I remember specifically Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward were walking out of a house, and there's just no light, and they're essentially walking in the darkness, but they're still on camera. In a normal movie or a different movie, they would be lit up somehow, even if it was some sort of simulated moonlight, shining down on them, or a simulated porch light shining down on them. But nope, porch light was off. They just walked out in the dark, and I thought that was interesting. Since we're talking about directors and stuff, and I wouldn't say that movie's underrated or anything, because I think everybody pretty much knows about it. But if you haven't seen it, you should watch it at least once. Have you seen it, Jake? I don't remember if you've seen it. Okay. No. Yeah, try to watch it if you can. It's from 1976, and it's about Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, the actual reporters, based on the actual reporters who unraveled Watergate, which to me is one of the more interesting political scandals to happen. Even more than, let's say, Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. It's like this whole scandal involving real big higher ups in Washington and Ronald Reagan is also, or not Ronald Reagan, I'm sorry, Richard Nixon is also a part of the whole thing. It's just very interesting stuff.
That's
So it's
political
pretty much
thriller
their
in a way.
generation's spotlight.
In a way, but I
sort
guess with bigger repercussions on a national level.
You know, it's following the reporters who are digging out this story.
But like Zach said, the bigger repercussions on a national level. Like I don't really, I really enjoyed Spotlight, but I don't necessarily remember the story that they were following.
Oh, you know, it's just the Catholic Church diddling kids.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, talking about, I mean, segue into that movie briefly before you talk more about All the President's Men. I enjoyed Spotlight overall. I felt like they rushed through a lot of the journalism aspects of the movie. I remember the montage of them going door to door and talking to people that trying to conduct interviews, just find connections to the, I guess, alleged pedophilia happening in the Catholic Church. I just felt like compared to All the President's Men, I think All the President's Men showcase the journalism, the deep dive, interviewing, especially at that one woman's house, as you mentioned. I mean, it was just a lot more. It felt real. It wasn't as
even
jump cutty and bouncing around as much as Spotlight. There was lots of pacing issues. Spotlight.
In undergrad, when we were learning film, specifically the montage sequence in Spotlight was what they gave us to use as like the premier example of how you're supposed to do a montage.
Well, that's different. That's a little different because you're talking about filmmaking techniques, and I think what Zach is talking about, how like the montage kind of rushes through the whole journalism aspect of the movie, right, Zach? It's like
that's what I meant, yeah.
But to be fair to Jake and Zach is a reporter. You're a filmmaker. You know what I mean? To us, that's great. If this is the premier way to do a montage, that's how we're going to look at it, you and me, right? Because this is what we do. But Zach, if he watches a movie and it's about reporting, Zach's going to want to see some freaking reporting. You know,
I want to see the notepad. I want to see the pencil on paper. I want to hear the questions. I want to see the guy smoking his cigarette.
But like in All the President's Men, like I enjoyed both movies, and but
I enjoyed them both as well.
With All the President's Men, I really enjoyed just kind of how it was really focused on the conversations and
investigation
and I won't spoil it. I was going to mention
like the Batman level of pacing.
Yeah,
we won't go into that.
Yeah,
somehow it all comes back to Batman.
Yeah, almost always it seems like. I was gonna say it, Zach, but I'll let you go ahead. Jake.
So Justin, what kind of style do you think that director utilized for his film?
Who?
All the President's Men.
From what I could tell, this with All the President's Men, it was like hiring a private detective to make a movie, right? Because they're going to always be hiding in the shadows and they're going to always be taking notes. You know what I mean? But of course, it's about reporters. So, and the big source with this story was Deep Throat, and you saw his face a little bit, but you didn't see it that well. You could kind of make out facial features, and he was always in the dark, and he never met anywhere other than like a parking garage underground. It wasn't even above the ground parking garage. It was an underground parking garage. Like he utilized, I think, for that movie, the style, they cut like the shadows and everything, because it was supposed to be kind of an investigative movie. And if you're going investigating, you're not necessarily going investigating out in the middle of the day. I mean, yeah, you can, but a lot of it's taking place at night. And, if we want to go back to Batman again, 90% of any Batman movies takes place at night.
I think what All the President's Men did a good job with was this kind of establishing that kind of tone and feeling of a fear that the reporters were going through, especially Bob Woodward's character. Mm-hmm. Like after he left, one of the scenes after he left the parking garage after his meeting with Deep Throat, he felt so paranoid and everything. I think there was a car or something that took off. I mean, I think we're supposed to think maybe it was the government
following him.
We don't know for sure necessarily, and that's when he becomes. There's this one sequence where he invites Carl Bernstein to his apartment, and then he blares music, some classical music,
the other way around,
cranks it up, and he's basically typing on his typewriter messages to Bernstein. I thought that whole sequence and the way it was done was excellent.
Yeah, you're right. I was thinking Bernstein invited him, but no, it was Woodward, because I do remember. Because in the parking garage, he has this conversation with Deep Throat. He turns around because a car took off in the garage, and he turns back around, and Deep Throat's gone. And then when he's walking outside of the garage, he's like walking, and then he starts kind of picking up the pace, and then he starts running, and then he just quickly turns around because he's essentially scared. He's paranoid that he's being followed.
I feel like they did like some classic late 70s technique where they might have zoomed in like very dramatically. I don't know if there was some type
like a dolly zoom.
Might have been
probably just like a regular, I would hearken it to like Wes Anderson, where he just kind of, it's still on tripod, but it just goes in, it just pushes in.
Yeah. It felt very like for the style of filmmaking.
Oh yeah. And that seems like a 70s thing is zooming in like that.
And the soundtrack was very minimal in the movie. And when it had like that 70s, it's hard to describe it.
It's that newsy kind of, film noir type music. And and that's kind of the vibe I get from this is film noir, which basically deals with detectives. But in this case, it deals with reporters, but they're also being detectives. So you can argue the fact that maybe this is a film noir, except for, it's not some hardened detective who has, he doesn't trust anybody in the world. But then he also has this, dame that he's been seeing. And that is just like, and that's one thing I thought about with this story was like, these are just two guys trying to find the truth. There's no love interests, no family drama. It's just two men trying to find the truth. And I think that's what I really also like, not just the director style, but just the story of just two guys wanting to figure out what's going on.
Definitely. It's 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a good movie, Jake. You need to check it out, man. Seriously.
You guys are ramping it up. I'm getting excited for it.
Well, I don't want to ramp
tension building.
I don't want to hype it up too much because I don't want you to go into it thinking it's this wonderful movie. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the movie.
If you said if it's at least as good as Spotlight is, which it seems like you said,
I think it's better than Spotlight.
Well, I love Spotlight, so
there's a lot more room to breathe in All the President's Men. Mm-hmm. You get to digest it like throughout the movie, whereas I feel like Spotlight jumps around. Mm-hmm. It's a faster paced movie.
It's more of a slow burn.
Yeah,
all the President's Men, I would say so, and then it kind of ends in a way, not abruptly, but you're kind of wanted to know more.
I don't care for the ending. I will admit, I don't care for the ending, but it wasn't bad. I did like the ending.
It served its purpose. I feel like because their job was done. They got the report. I mean, not like
spoiler alert,
but they did their job, and the movie for the most part was focusing on those two reporters.
Just those guys, and they were trying to find the truth, man. It's just
they did their part, and then Nixon was done.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. This kind of evolved more from directors' overall styles to honing into a particular film style. Like when you guys kept mentioning, you were saying the director had it filmed in such a way that it was almost like a reporter filming the movie,
almost like if a reporter did the movie.
Yeah.
If Zack decided he wanted to make a movie about a reporter, I think that's how it would turn out. If you or me decided we wanted to do a movie about a reporter, it would probably be more like Spotlight, because we're going for that filmmaking, and we're thinking about the
dramatization and
and conflict and stuff. Which there is conflict, of course, in All the President's Men, even between even between Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. There's conflict, but I just thought, I don't know, it is a great if you're in a reporting class, that'd be a great movie to watch, I think. And Spotlight would also be a great movie to watch. They both would be good movies to watch.
And it's a wonderful movie. Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman just nailed their roles, and they're wonderful actors in general, especially Hoffman in other roles he's done. What's that one movie where he kind of plays the brother he's with Tom Cruise? I forgot the movie.
Rain Man?
Yeah, Rain Man. I enjoyed that movie.
I've never seen Rain Man. I'm going to be honest with you.
This brings up a question in my mind. How much responsibility does a director have let's say, who has their own style, when they need to produce someone else's style or a particular film style that's not necessarily their niche.
That's a good question. I would think. Oh, that's a good question.
How much responsibility do they have in representing that particular film style that's needed as opposed to their own?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because the first director I think of with that is Darren Aronofsky, who did Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan and Mother. But then he also directs Noah, which is about Noah's Ark, which I think if you look at, you think about the story of Noah's Ark and you say, hey, Darren Aronofsky, you direct this movie. I think that's how, that is a Darren Aronofsky movie, regardless if it's based on, a story in the Bible. And that, I'm glad you said that, Jake, because I was totally going to bring up Darren Aronofsky because I also really like him, but not necessarily for his directing style, but his storytelling ability and the way, well, I guess a little bit his directing style, because he is kind of, he does use kind of darker stuff. All his subject matter is pretty dark. If you've ever seen Mother, it's essentially an allegory on the Bible. And then Noah, which was a good movie, but he has this different take on Noah and the Bible and all this stuff.
The Noah film is actually based off the Gnostic texts, not the Judaism Christian texts.
Oh, okay.
Which is why it's so different.
Gnostic, like agnostic.
Yeah,
right?
there's
that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. Because it does seem like it's not from, the Bible itself. It's because when we think Noah, we think this old man who got 2 of every animal and all this stuff. But then you got these rock monsters and stuff in the Noah version of Darren Aronofsky's Noah, which is a little different than what the Bible tells us.
I know where you get the agnostics from, but the Gnostic texts are actually not agnostic.
Well,
they are.
I'm just going off the spelling.
I know they're actually they're refused books of the Bible. Essentially, they are books or versions of the Bible that have been kind of refused from the official texts.
That's interesting because
shunned texts.
I've never heard of it. But
yeah, that's super interesting. You should look it up if you have the chance.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, it's on Wikipedia, but it says Gnosticism used a number of religious texts that are preserved or in part or whole in ancient manuscripts or lost, but mentioned critically in, what is this word? Patristic writings.
There's a lot of interesting ones. There's supposedly the Book of Judas, the Gospel of Mary, all these alternative stories and writers that supposedly, at least according to Gnostics, exist and wrote these books, but the mainstream Christianity
threw them out. Essentially,
threw them out.
That's interesting stuff. Okay, because that makes more sense with this Noah movie, the way he presented it. Did I ask you guys if you'd seen Noah? Have you seen it?
No.
Yeah,
you have. Okay, so what did you think about it?
Well, being as how my background is Southern Baptist Christian, and I saw it when I was very much in the church, which I still am in the church, but I was
right now you're in your house.
Yeah.
No, everyone. Your church is everywhere.
You go see. You're like, oh, goody, a Bible film from Hollywood.
Then it's a totally different
monsters.
Thing. Yeah.
This dude's making deals with a snake and he's wrapping around his arm. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, totally.
Blue screen.
Totally understand. I totally agree because that movie is not far from the original, or at least what I grew up on growing up Southern Baptist as well, is it's totally, I need to watch this movie again. I'm pretty sure I have it. So I need to watch this movie again.
Going back to my original, how much responsibility, because you mentioned, his style, how much responsibility does someone like him have when working with his own niche or with
somebody else's writing?
Someone else's or a particular film style.
The great thing about directors is they have all the responsibility. So even if you wrote something, Jake, and you're like, hey, I want you to direct this, I might take tips from you, but I'm still going to make it my own. You know, if you're giving me a script and you're entrusting me to direct this movie, then I need to have at least like 98% of control, you know, unless you're a studio. You know, if you're a studio, that's a different story, especially if you're funding the movie. If you're like, if I'm just paid to direct, you know, there's a difference between directing your own movie and being paid to direct. So like, you know, some directors, they just like, you know, you think of, you know, Disney Pixar directors who are just pumping out movies because they're getting paid to do it. And they're just, you know, essentially it's and even MCU directors, mostly, some of them are a little different, but most MCU directors are just getting paid to make these movies, except for maybe Jon Favreau. You know, he's a little different because he kind of brought on the MCU, but you know, they're just getting paid to make these movies, and they just kind of like, all right, ready, action, go. And this is not really their own style, you know?
I think directorially, you know, the sequel trilogy for Star Wars, I feel like each movie in the sequel trilogy had a different vibe because each except Force Awakens and the
Rise of Skywalker,
because they were both
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. Abrams, but obviously Rian Johnson's whole subversion of expectations, his style was definitely there, despite my own opinions about the movie and the lore itself. But from a movie making standpoint, I enjoyed what he was trying to go for.
I would agree. I do like, the only reason I even like The Last Jedi is because the movie is not that good. But if you think about it, you have this one director, he's kind of like a lone director, and he's like, they're like, hey, direct this. And I don't know, because of that, it's like, okay, I might watch this movie one more time, or, you know, I'll watch this movie when I'm watching all the Star Wars movies, you know, just because it is a Star Wars movie. But you do kind of get that different vibe from Rian Johnson than as opposed to J.J. Abrams, which you can kind of appreciate. But definitely. Yeah, it wasn't like a top tier movie, period. Like not just Star Wars, but movie, period. Yeah, I get it. You know, I get everybody's arguments, but it's still Star Wars.
There's a difference between, I guess, the filmmaking and then the lore and how characters are treated. You could appreciate.
Oh yeah.
You know, just the way it looks and feels and the cinematography, etc. But I just don't agree with the storytelling. I would agree with that. And the only thing about that movie that I liked was the scene where Laura Dern, you know, does whatever she does with the ship and runs into the other ship and they blow up, but there's no sound. I thought that was a neat choice. That was an interesting choice.
Visually very, very cool.
Yeah.
Canon breaking, yes. But
what are you gonna do?
Very cool.
That's all I'm going for. Visually very cool, even audibly very cool. Because, you know,
I will say
Mary Poppins flying, or Leia Poppins
with Daisy Ripley in the cave, the Sith cave, and the infinite mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
That was in The Last Jedi, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
It was, yeah.
It was.
It was trying to kind of harkening back to Luke Skywalker's discovery on Dagobah and all that. Yeah.
That was a cool. That was a cool shot. I enjoyed that part of it. I wish they'd done more with it. I feel like that could have taken them in a cool direction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Jake, that it's very bottom of the totem pole of Star Wars movies. But
we're gonna have another episode on, I think, Star Wars or the sequel trilogy. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, we have to. We need to do, Stu. We just need to do different episodes on each trilogy.
No, want. You know what I want? I want the Youngling cut.
A Youngling cut.
You know what?
Episode
3, when they're like, Master Skywalker, what are we gonna do? And
what are we gonna do? That's what he does. That's what he sounds like.
I want the extended cut.
That kid. Oh, poor kid.
You want the extended scene of that? Well, just go to download the game Star Wars Jedi Academy, and there's an expansion pack where you could be Anakin and slaughtering younglings. Or the younglings could kill Anakin in a alternate scene.
Anyway, I guess we should wrap it up, guys. We only got a couple minutes left on this Zoom meeting.
All right, if we have to.
Yeah. So you want to wrap it up there, Jake?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up.
Wrap it up there, boss.
What's the thesis?
Guys,
Now-
thank you so much for being with us, listening, spending time as we
Pontificate.
pontificate.
All right, just say bye.
We got to promote the social media.
We do.
Yeah.
Like us. We have a Facebook page. Follow
we
us
sure do.
on Instagram. We've got a
Twitter account.
Twitter.
And we also have YouTube, which YouTube we haven't uploaded yet, but we will.
We will eventually.
Well, by the time this episode comes out, we'll. So
We'll
we
figure
have
something out.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. Please let us know if you have anything interesting you want us to talk about, or if you just want to say hello, or if you want to say goodbye. If you want to say I don't want to listen to you guys anymore, please tell us.
Rate and review us.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
All right,
guess
guys.
that's
Thank
it
you so
for-
much for listening. From Jake.
And Justin.
And Zach.
Have a good day.
All right. See you guys.